The morning sun peeked through the thin curtains of Tanya's bedroom window, casting warm stripes across her face. She groaned and rolled over, her hand automatically reaching for her phone to silence the alarm before it could blare its usual wake-up call. 5:30 in the morning again. Another day, another double shift at Memorial Hospital. Tanya Johnson had been working as a nurse for almost 12 years now, and the early mornings never got easier. She sat up slowly, rubbing the sleep from her eyes as her feet found their way into the fuzzy slippers beside her bed. A small comfort before the long day ahead. Coffee first, she mumbled to herself, a daily ritual that had become as essential as breathing. Her small one-bedroom apartment was quiet, the kind of quiet that reminded her how alone she was since her mother passed last year. The thought sent a familiar ache through her chest as she shuffled to the kitchen. The coffee maker gurgled to life and Tanya leaned against the counter, scrolling through her phone. 3 new messages from the hospital group chat, a reminder about her student loan payment due next week, and a memorial notification. It had been exactly 1 year since her mother's funeral. "I miss you, Mama," she whispered, touching the small framed photo on her refrigerator. Her mother's smile beamed back at her, proud and loving as always. "Still keeping on like you taught me." The coffee finished brewing and Tanya poured herself a generous cup, adding just a splash of cream. She moved to the small balcony overlooking the city, where the dawn was just beginning to wake the world. Down below, a few early joggers and dog walkers dotted the sidewalks. A garbage truck rumbled past. The city was stretching itself awake, much like Tanya. Back inside, she opened her closet and pulled out her scrubs, dark blue today. She'd bought them on sale last month, a small treat to herself. After a quick shower, she dressed and packed a lunch, a turkey sandwich, an apple, and a granola bar. Nothing fancy, but enough to keep her going through her shift. "Hair up or down today?" she asked her reflection as she stood before the bathroom mirror. Her thick curls were being particularly stubborn this morning. Up it is, she decided, twisting her hair into a neat bun, a touch of lip gloss, a spritz of her favorite vanilla scent, and she was ready. Tanya grabbed her worn backpack, stuffed with an extra pair of socks. The hospital floors were merciless on feet. Her water bottle, a novel she'd been trying to finish for 3 weeks, and her wallet. She locked her apartment door, patted her pocket to make sure she had her keys, and headed down the 3 flights of stairs. The elevator had been out of service for nearly a month now. Another item on the landlord's seemingly endless to-fix list. The morning air held that special spring freshness, cool but with the promise of warmth later. Tanya took a deep breath, letting it fill her lungs as she set off down the street. Her apartment wasn't far from the hospital, a 15-minute walk on good days, and she preferred to save the bus fare when the weather allowed. "Morning." "Miss Tanya," called Mr. Wilson, an elderly man who ran the corner store. He was sweeping the sidewalk in front of his shop, an early morning ritual as consistent as Tanya's commute. "Morning, Mr. Wilson," she replied with a smile. "Beautiful day coming." "That it is. You working another double?" Tanya nodded. "Bills don't pay themselves." Mr. Wilson shook his head sympathetically. "You take care not to work yourself into the ground, you hear? Stop by on your way home. I'll save you some of that sweet bread your mama always liked." The mention of her mother's favorite treat brought a genuine smile to Tanya's face. "I'd like that." "Thank you." As she continued her walk, Tanya noticed the details that made up her neighborhood. The mural of children playing that brightened the side of the community center. The small garden Ms. Patel had planted in front of her townhouse. The bench where the high school kids would gather after school. These familiar sights grounded her, reminded her that she belonged somewhere even if her apartment often felt empty. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. A text from her co-worker Jade, "Bringing donuts. Save me from eating them all." Tanya smiled and typed back, "My willpower is as weak as yours, but bring them anyway." By the time she reached the main street, the city was fully awake. Cars zoomed past, people hurried along the sidewalks clutching coffee cups and briefcases, and street vendors were setting up their carts for the day. Tanya waited at the crosswalk, observing the rush around her. A young man in a business suit tapped impatiently at his watch while waiting for the light to change. A mother tried to corral 2 small children who seemed determined to go in opposite directions. An older woman with a cane stood quietly, her patience a stark contrast to the businessman's agitation. When the light changed, Tanya offered her arm to the older woman. May I help you across? The woman's face brightened with gratitude. So kind of you, dear. These crossings get shorter every year, or maybe my legs get slower. They crossed together, taking their time despite the impatient honks from drivers eager for their turn. Have a blessed day, the woman said as they reached the other side. You too, Tanya replied, feeling a small glow of satisfaction. Her mama had always taught her that kindness costs nothing but means everything. The hospital loomed ahead, its many windows reflecting the morning sun. Tanya felt the familiar mixture of pride and weariness that came with her profession. She loved being a nurse, loved helping people, but the long hours and emotional toll sometimes weighed heavily. Inside, the hospital was already bustling with activity. Nurses changing shifts, doctors making rounds, patients being wheeled to tests or procedures. The smell of disinfectant and coffee mingled in the air. There she is, Jade called from the nurse's station, waving a donut in Tanya's direction. I saved you chocolate glazed. You're an angel, Tanya said, dropping her backpack and accepting the treat gratefully. An angel who needs to tell you something. Jade lowered her voice. They're short-staffed in pediatrics again. Guess where we're being floated today? Tanya groaned. Both of us? Just for the morning, then back to our regular floor. Tanya took a big bite of her donut, savoring the sweetness. Well, at least the kids are cute. The kids, yes. The parents. Jade made a face. They're just worried about their little ones, Tanya reminded her. Remember how Mama used to get when I had so much as a sniffle? Jade laughed. Your mother once called my house at midnight because she thought you might have caught my cold. And then showed up with enough chicken soup to feed my entire family for a week, Tanya added, the memory warming her heart. Their supervisor approached, clipboard in hand. Ladies, I need you both to clock in 5 minutes ago. We've got a busy one today. Tanya and Jade exchanged knowing looks. When don't we? Jade muttered under her breath. The morning passed in a blur of vital signs, medication rounds, and patient care. Tanya moved from room to room in the pediatric ward, checking on a 5-year-old with pneumonia, a teenager recovering from appendix surgery, and twin toddlers with matching ear infections. She sang silly songs to make a frightened little boy smile while she changed his fee. She held the hand of a 12-year-old girl getting stitches removed from her knee. She listened patiently as a worried father asked the same questions about his daughter's asthma medication for the 3rd time. By noon, her feet were already protesting, but there was no time to rest. A quick lunch in the staff room, half of her sandwich eaten while standing, and then back to her regular floor for the afternoon shift. You look beat already, commented Dr. Patel as they passed in the hallway. And it's only halfway through your day. I'm good, Tanya assured him, though the yawn she tried to suppress suggested otherwise. You're always good, he replied with a knowing smile. But even the strongest of us need rest. When was your last day off? Tanya had to think about it. Last? Thursday, I think? Dr. Patel shook his head. Take care of yourself, Nurse Johnson. We need you too much to lose you to burnout. His words followed her as she continued her rounds. Take care of yourself. It was advice she often gave to patients and their families, but rarely followed herself. There was always another bill to pay, another shift to cover, another person who needed help. As her afternoon shift began, Tanya felt a second wind kick in. This was her regular floor, with patients she knew and colleagues she could rely on. Mrs. Rivera in room 304 needed her bandages changed, and always wanted to show Tanya pictures of her grandchildren. Mr. Abernathy in 310 was recovering from hip surgery and loved to talk about his days as a jazz musician. The young woman in 315 was fighting cancer with a courage that left Tanya in awe. Each room held a story, a life, a person who needed her care and compassion. This was why she pushed through the exhaustion, why she picked up extra shifts, why she kept going even when her feet ached and her back protested. These moments, these connections, they mattered. The afternoon hours ticked by, marked by medications delivered, charts updated, doctors consulted, and countless small kindnesses offered. Tanya adjusted pillows, fetched extra blankets, explained procedures, and sometimes simply sat and listened when that was what was needed most. By the time her double shift finally ended, the sun was beginning its descent. Tanya clocked out, her body heavy with fatigue but her mind already planning tomorrow. She needed to stop by the grocery store on her way home, and she hadn't forgotten Mr. Wilson's promise of sweet bread. As she stepped outside the hospital, the cooler evening air revived her slightly. She took a deep breath, letting go of the day's stress, and set off toward home, unaware that her ordinary day was about to become extraordinary. The clock on Tanya's phone read 7:45 p.m. as she finally left the hospital grounds. Her shoulders ached from 12 hours of bending over patients, checking IVs, and helping people sit up in their beds. Her stomach grumbled, reminding her that half a sandwich and an apple weren't enough food for such a long day. Just need to grab a few things from the store, she mumbled to herself, mentally checking her nearly empty fridge. Milk, eggs, maybe some chicken for tomorrow. And she couldn't forget Mr. Wilson's sweet bread. The evening air had cooled considerably, and Tanya pulled her light jacket tighter around her. The city looked different now than it had that morning, softer somehow, with streetlights creating pools of golden light and restaurant windows glowing warmly as people enjoyed their dinners. Tanya walked toward the busier part of downtown, where shops stayed open later. She passed a small park where a few children were still playing despite the darkening sky, their parents calling that it was time to head home. The sound of their laughter made her smile. At the corner of Maple and Fifth, she waited for the light to change. This intersection was always busy, with 4 lanes of traffic and pedestrians rushing in all directions. A young couple stood near her, arguing quietly about dinner plans. A businessman talked loudly on his phone about quarterly reports. A woman juggled grocery bags while trying to keep an eye on her little girl, who was playing with a bright red ball. Tanya noticed the child. She couldn't be more than 5 or 6 years old, with dark pigtails bouncing as she tossed the ball from one hand to the other. The girl wore a yellow dress with rainbow leggings underneath, the kind of mismatched outfit kids put together when they're allowed to dress themselves. Her smile was wide and carefree. "Lily, stay close," the woman with the groceries called, shifting her bags to free one hand. "We'll be home soon." Tanya smiled at the little girl, who grinned back shyly before returning her attention to her bouncing ball. The light was still red, and Tanya checked her phone quickly, seeing a message from Jade thanking her for covering part of her shift tomorrow. It happened in seconds. The little girl, Lily, gave her ball an enthusiastic bounce, but it slipped from her small hands. The red ball bounced once on the sidewalk, then rolled toward the street. Without hesitation, Lily darted after it. "Lily, no!" the mother screamed, dropping her groceries. Tanya's head snapped up. She saw the child running into the street. She saw the traffic light turn green. She saw a silver sports car accelerate forward, its driver looking down at something in his lap rather than at the road ahead. Tanya didn't think. Her body moved before her mind could catch up. 3 quick steps and she was off the curb. Another 2 and she reached the little girl who had stopped in the middle of the first lane, frozen in fear as she suddenly realized where she was. The sports car's engine roared as it picked up speed, now only yards away. Tanya lunged forward, wrapping her arms around Lily's small body and lifting her off the ground. There wasn't time to run back to the curb. Instead, Tanya spun, using her own body as a shield, and threw herself toward the far side of the road. She felt the rush of air as the car sped past, missing them by inches. The driver hadn't even seen them, never slowed down. Tanya twisted her body to take the impact of the fall, landing hard on her side and rolling. Pain shot through her knee and elbow as they scraped against the asphalt. For a moment, everything was a blur. Then Tanya heard screaming. The mother, other pedestrians, someone calling for help. The little girl in her arms was trembling but seemed unhurt. "Are you okay, sweetheart?" Tanya asked, her voice shakier than she'd like. The child nodded, her eyes wide with shock and brimming with tears. "My ball," she whispered. "I think your ball is gone," Tanya said gently, sitting up and checking the child for any injuries. "But that's okay. We can get another ball. You're safe, and that's what matters. Lily." "Oh my God, Lily." The mother had reached them now, falling to her knees beside them. Her groceries lay forgotten on the sidewalk, eggs broken and milk spilling across the concrete. "Baby, are you hurt?" "She seems fine," Tanya said, carefully handing the child to her mother. "Just scared." The woman pulled Lily into a fierce hug, tears streaming down her face. "Thank you," she gasped, looking at Tanya. "Thank you. I don't know what I would have done if—" She couldn't finish the sentence, just hugged her daughter tighter. Tanya tried to stand and winced as pain shot through her knee. Looking down, she saw that her scrubs were torn, her knee bleeding through the fabric. Her elbow hadn't fared much better. "You're hurt," the mother said, noticing Tanya's wince. "We need to get you help." By now, a small crowd had gathered. Someone offered a water bottle. An older man took off his light jacket and laid it on the ground for Tanya to sit on. A college-age kid was already on the phone with 911. "I'm fine," Tanya insisted, though the stinging in her knee suggested otherwise. "I'm a nurse. It's just some scrapes." "That was incredible," said a young woman who had been recording the aftermath on her phone. "You just flew in there like some kind of superhero." Tanya shifted uncomfortably at the attention. "Anyone would have done the same." "No, they wouldn't," said a man in a business suit. "That car was moving fast. You could have been killed." A murmur of agreement went through the small crowd. Someone had started recording on their phone. Tanya noticed and frowned. "Please don't," she said. "I really don't want to be on camera." Most people respectfully lowered their phones, but Tanya noticed one person still filming. A woman with a microphone was pushing through the crowd, followed by a man with a professional-looking camera. The logo on the microphone was for the local news station. "Excuse me." "Excuse me," the reporter called. "I'm Diane Matthews with Channel 5 News. We were just down the street covering the new art installation when we heard the commotion. Can you tell us what happened here?" Tanya looked away from the camera. "It was nothing, really. The little girl ran into the street and I just reacted." "Nothing?" the reporter repeated incredulously. "Ma'am, you just saved this child's life. Can you tell us your name?" "I'd rather not," Tanya said firmly. "Please. I just want to make sure the little girl is okay and then head home. It's been a long day." The reporter seemed disappointed but nodded. She turned her attention to others in the crowd who were more willing to describe what they'd seen. "Witnesses say she moved faster than anyone thought possible," Tanya heard someone tell the reporter. "Like she didn't even think about her own safety." Meanwhile, Lily had calmed down enough to stop crying. She looked up at Tanya with wide eyes. "You got hurt because of me," she said in a small voice. Tanya smiled gently. "No, sweetheart. I got hurt because that driver wasn't paying attention. It's not your fault at all. But my ball was just being a ball," Tanya finished for her. "Balls bounce. That's what they do. Next time, though, remember that no toy is worth running into the street for. Okay?" Lily nodded solemnly. "Okay." A police car pulled up, lights flashing but siren off. Two officers got out and made their way to the small crowd. Behind them was an ambulance responding to someone's 911 call. "That's really not necessary," Tanya protested when a paramedic approached her with a first aid kit. "I'm fine. Let them check you out," the mother insisted. She hadn't let go of Lily since reaching her. "Please, it's the least we can do." While the paramedic cleaned and bandaged Tanya's knee and elbow, the police officers took statements from witnesses. Tanya heard phrases like "wasn't even watching the road" and "on his phone" and "silver sports car." One witness had managed to catch part of the license plate number. "Ma'am, we'll need your statement as well," one of the officers said, approaching Tanya. She nodded, giving a brief account of what happened. "I didn't get a good look at the driver," she admitted. "Everything happened so fast." "Several witnesses say he was looking down, probably at a phone," the officer said, making notes. "We'll do our best to find him." This could have been much worse. The mother, who had introduced herself as Grace, hadn't stopped thanking Tanya. "Please, let me do something for you, anything." "Really, it's not necessary," Tanya said. "I'm just glad Lily is okay." "At least let me give you my phone number," Grace insisted. "My husband will want to thank you too. He's out of town on business, but when I tell him what happened..." Tanya hesitated, then nodded. They exchanged numbers, and Grace promised to call the next day to check on her. After the paramedics declared that both Tanya and Lily were relatively unharmed, just some scrapes and bruises, the police finished taking statements. The news crew had gotten gorgy footage for their evening report and packed up. Slowly the crowd began to disperse. "Do you need a ride home?" Grace asked, still holding Lily close. "My sister is coming to pick us up." "We can drop you off," Tanya shook her head. "Thank you, but it's not far. I still need to stop at the store anyway." She smiled at Lily. "You take care, okay? And listen to your mom." Lily nodded, then surprised Tanya by breaking free from her mother's grip to give her a quick hug. "Thank you for saving me," she whispered. Tanya felt a lump form in her throat as she hugged the child back. "You're very welcome, sweetheart." As she finally continued her walk to the grocery store, Tanya's knee throbbed with each step. Her backpack felt heavier now, her body reminding her that she'd already been exhausted before adding rescue a child from oncoming traffic to her day's activities. Still, there was a strange lightness in her chest. She'd acted on instinct, doing what needed to be done without a second thought. Her mother would have been proud. The grocery store was quiet when she arrived, just a few late shoppers picking up last-minute items. Tanya grabbed a basket and moved slowly through the aisles, adding milk, eggs, bread, and a few other essentials. The cashier raised an eyebrow at Tanya's torn scrubs and bandaged knee. "Rough day?" Tanya smiled tiredly. "You could say that." On her way home, she remembered to stop by Mr. Wilson's corner store, which was just closing up for the night. "There you are," he said when she entered. "I was about to give up on you." His eyes widened when he noticed her appearance. "Good Lord, what happened to you?" "Long story," Tanya said. "Let's just say I'm ready for this day to be over." Mr. Wilson handed her a paper bag containing the promised sweet bread. "On the house," he insisted when she tried to pay. "You look like you earned it." If only he knew, Tanya thought as she thanked him and headed the final few blocks home. All she wanted now was a hot shower, some food, and her bed. She had no idea that the events at that intersection had been witnessed by someone else. Someone whose life was about to become unexpectedly intertwined with her own. From the corner office on the 12th floor of Thornton Tower, Robert Thornton had a perfect view of the city he was gradually reshaping. Floor-to-ceiling windows surrounded him on two sides, offering a panoramic vista of downtown. Usually he found the view calming, a reminder of all he had built from nothing. Today, though, he barely noticed it. His desk was covered with blueprints for the new waterfront development, a project that would transform the old industrial area into luxury condominiums, high-end retail spaces, and a carefully curated public park that would, in reality, be designed to keep out anyone who couldn't afford to live in the surrounding properties. Robert leaned back in his leather chair, pinching the bridge of his nose. The zoning commission was giving him trouble again, talking about community impact studies and affordable housing requirements, as if he hadn't already greased enough palms to make those concerns disappear. His intercom buzzed. "Mr. Thornton, your ex-wife is on line 1. Robert sighed. The divorce had been finalized almost 2 years ago, but Claire still found reasons to call. Usually to remind him of his failings as a father. "Put her through," he said, straightening his custom-tailored suit jacket as though Claire might somehow see him through the phone. "Robert," came Claire's crisp voice, "I've been trying to reach you all day." "I've been in meetings," he lied. "What do you need?" "I need you to remember that you have a daughter," Claire said, her voice tight with familiar frustration. "Lily's dance recital is this weekend. You promised her you'd be there." Robert glanced at the calendar on his desk. There it was, written in his assistant's neat handwriting. Lily's dance recital, 3 p.m. He had completely forgotten. "Of course I'll be there," he said, trying to sound like this hadn't been news to him. "Wouldn't miss it. Like you didn't miss her school play? Or her birthday last year?" Robert felt a flash of anger. "I sent a gift. A very expensive gift." She didn't want an expensive gift, Robert. She wanted her father. The familiar guilt twisted in his stomach. After the divorce, he had thrown himself even more completely into his work. Building his empire seemed easier than figuring out how to be a father to a 5-year-old who looked at him with hurt eyes whenever he canceled plans. "I'll be at the recital," he said firmly. "Is that all?" Claire sighed. "She's with Maria today. I had that charity luncheon, remember? Please call Lily tonight before bed. She was asking about you this morning." "I will," Robert promised, knowing even as he said it that he would probably forget, distracted by work or drinks with investors. After hanging up, Robert turned his chair to face the windows, looking out at the city below. Sometimes he felt like he owned it all, or at least the parts that mattered. Other times, like now, he felt oddly disconnected from it, like he was watching the world through glass, never quite touching it. His thoughts were interrupted by movement on the street below. His office overlooked a busy intersection, and something had caught his eye, a flash of yellow against the gray cityscape. Robert leaned forward, focusing on the scene 12 stories below. A woman with grocery bags stood at the corner, and beside her was a small figure in a yellow dress. His heart jumped. Lily. He'd recognize that yellow dress anywhere. It was her favorite, the one she insisted on wearing at least twice a week, despite Claire's attempts to expand her wardrobe. But that wasn't Claire with her. It must be Maria, the nanny. What were they doing downtown? The dance studio was on the other side of the city, nowhere near this area. As Robert watched, trying to make sense of the situation, he saw Lily playing with something red, her ball, the one he had bought her on their last outing together. She had been so delighted with such a simple gift that he had felt both touched and guilty. Why was it so hard for him to connect with his own child? Then everything seemed to happen at once. The ball bounced away. Lily darted after it into the street. A silver car was approaching. Robert's body tensed, his hands gripping the arms of his chair so tightly his knuckles turned white. He was too far away to do anything but watch as his daughter ran into the path of an oncoming car. No, the word tore from his throat, though no one was there to hear it. Then, like something out of an action movie, a woman moved. Robert hadn't noticed her before. A black woman in blue scrubs standing at the same corner. She reacted instantly, racing into the street after Lily. In a blur of movement, she scooped up his daughter and twisted away from the car, which sped past without slowing. Robert found himself on his feet, pressed against the window, heart pounding in his chest. Had that really just happened? Had he almost lost his daughter right before his eyes? The street below had erupted into activity, people gathering around the woman and Lily, someone calling for help. Robert could see Maria, it was definitely her, clutching Lily while the woman in scrubs sat on the ground. Without thinking, he grabbed his phone and called Maria's number. "Mr. Thornton?" Maria answered, her voice shaking. "I was just about to call you. What happened?" he demanded, still watching the scene from above. "Why is Lily downtown? Is she hurt?" No, she's fine," Maria rushed to explain. "Just frightened. We were on our way back from the Children's Museum. She wanted to go there after dance class." "I'm so sorry, sir, it happened so fast." She ran after her ball into the street. "I saw," Robert said, his voice tight. "I can see you right now." "I'm in my office." He watched as Maria looked up, scanning the buildings around her. "Who is that woman? The one who pulled Lily from the street?" "I don't know her name," Maria said. She refused to give it to the reporter who tried to interview her. "She's a nurse, I think. She saved Lily's life, Mr. Thornton. The car never even slowed down." Robert watched as the small crowd below began to disperse. An ambulance had arrived, and he could see paramedics checking both Lily and the nurse. His heart rate was finally beginning to slow, the initial panic giving way to a strange mixture of relief, gratitude, and anger. "Bring Lily up to my office," he said. "I want to see her." "Yes, sir." "Right away." Robert hung up and continued to watch. The nurse was standing now, limping slightly. She waved off further attention from the paramedics and began walking away from the scene. Robert had an urge to call out, to stop her somehow, but of course she couldn't hear him from up here. 15 minutes later, there was a knock on his office door. Robert opened it himself instead of waiting for his assistant to show them in. Lily stood there, her yellow dress dirty now, her face tear-streaked but calm. Maria hovered behind her, looking nervous. "Daddy!" Lily's face lit up and she ran to him. Robert knelt and pulled her into a tight hug, surprising himself with the intensity of his emotion. "Are you okay, Princess?" he asked, pulling back to look at her. Lily nodded. "A lady saved me. She jumped really fast and picked me up before the car could hit us." "I saw," Robert said gently, brushing her hair back from her face. "That was a very brave lady." "She got hurt because of me," Lily said, her lower lip trembling. Her knee was bleeding. "It wasn't because of you," Robert reassured her. "It was because of the driver who wasn't watching where they were going." He looked up at Maria. "Did anyone get the license plate?" "Partially," Maria said. "The police were there. They're looking for the driver." Robert nodded grimly. When they found the driver, he would make sure they faced consequences. No one endangered his daughter and just drove away. "Maria," he said, "take the rest of the day off. I'll take Lily home." Maria looked surprised. Robert rarely adjusted his schedule for Lily. "Are you sure, sir?" "Yes, and thank you for taking care of her." He meant it sincerely, though he knew his usual tone made it hard for people to tell when he was being genuine. After Maria left, Robert brought Lily to the small sofa in his office. "Would you like a hot chocolate?" he asked. "I can have Deborah bring one up." Lily nodded, a small smile appearing. "With marshmallows?" "Of course. The tiny ones you like." He pressed the intercom and made the request. While they waited, Lily told him about her day, the dance class, the children's museum, and finally the scary moment in the street. Robert listened, really listened, for the first time in longer than he cared to admit. "The lady was so nice, Daddy," Lily said. "She told me not to feel bad about my ball. She said balls are supposed to bounce, but I shouldn't run after them into the street." "That's very good advice," Robert agreed. "She had a Band-Aid on her knee, but she said it didn't hurt much." Robert felt a strange tightness in his chest. This woman, this stranger, had risked her own safety for his daughter without a moment's hesitation. Meanwhile, he, Lily's own father, had been so distant that he couldn't even remember her dance recital without being reminded. "Did she tell you her name?" he asked. Lily shook her head. "But the other lady, the one with the groceries, got her phone number. She said we should thank her properly." "The other lady?" Robert was confused. "The one who was pretending to be my mommy for the news people," Lily explained matter-of-factly. "Maria told her to say that so they wouldn't know who I was. She was nice too." Robert nodded slowly, understanding. Maria had been smart enough to protect Lily's privacy, aware that the Thornton name would immediately draw more attention. He made a mental note to give her a raise. As they drank their hot chocolates, Robert found himself glancing repeatedly at the window, at the intersection where the incident had happened. The woman in scrubs was long gone, but he couldn't stop thinking about her. Who was she? Why had she refused to give her name to reporters? Most people would have seized the opportunity for attention, maybe even tried to leverage their heroism for some kind of reward. But she had just walked away, limping from an injury she'd sustained while saving a stranger's child. His child. Robert looked at Lily, who was happily licking marshmallow foam from her upper lip. He had almost lost her today. The thought made his chest constrict painfully, and he would have lost her without ever really knowing her. Without her ever really knowing him as anything more than the distant figure who sent expensive gifts to make up for his absence. "Lily," he said quietly, "how would you like to have dinner with me tonight? We could go to that pizza place you like." Lily's eyes widened with surprise and delight. "Really? But you always have meetings." The simple truth in her words stung. "Not tonight," he promised. "Tonight it's just you and me." As they left his office together, hand in hand, Robert made a silent promise, to himself, to Lily, and to the unknown woman who had saved his daughter's life. Things were going to change, and somehow he was going to find that woman and thank her properly. 3 days had passed since the incident at the intersection, and Tanya was back at work despite the still healing scrape on her knee. The hospital was short-staffed as always, and she couldn't afford to take time off even if she'd wanted to. Besides, keeping busy helped take her mind off the nightmares she'd had each night, dreams where she didn't reach the little girl in time. "You're limping again," Jade said as they restocked supplies in the storage room. "You should have taken at least a day off," Tanya shrugged. "Bills don't pay themselves, and it's just a scrape." "A scrape you got saving a child's life," Jade reminded her, which, by the way, was on the news. Channel 5 ran the story. "They didn't have your name, but they showed footage a bystander took." Tanya groaned. "Great, just what I need. What, recognition for being a hero?" "I'm not a hero, Jade. I just happened to be in the right place at the right time." Jade gave her a look that said she wasn't buying it. "Sure. And I suppose anyone would have risked getting hit by a car to save a kid they don't know." Before Tanya could answer, her pager beeped. "Room 212 needs help with a patient transfer," she said, grateful for the interruption. "I'll catch you later." The rest of the morning passed in a blur of routine tasks, checking vitals, administering medications, helping a physical therapist with a patient's walking exercises. It was nearly noon when Tanya was called to the front desk. "There's someone asking for you," said Nancy, the receptionist. She raised her eyebrows meaningfully. "A very well-dressed someone," Tanya frowned. "For me, did they say what they wanted?" "Just that it was important." Nancy leaned forward and lowered her voice. "He's been waiting almost an hour. Wouldn't leave." Curious and slightly concerned, Tanya made her way to the waiting area. She spotted him immediately, a tall man in a suit that probably cost more than 3 months of her rent. He stood out sharply against the worn furniture and outdated magazines of the hospital waiting room, like a jaguar in a kennel of mutts. When he saw her, he stood up quickly. "Nurse Johnson?" he asked, extending his hand. "Robert Thornton." Tanya hesitated before shaking his hand. His grip was firm, his eyes direct. "Do I know you, Mr. Thornton?" "No," he said, "but I know what you did. You saved my daughter's life 3 days ago." Tanya's eyes widened. "Your daughter? You mean Lily?" She looked around, half expecting to see the little girl in the yellow dress. "But I thought that woman wasn't her mother," Robert explained. "She was the nanny. My ex-wife and I share custody." Understanding dawned on Tanya. "I see." Then a question occurred to her. "How did you find me?" "I didn't give my name to anyone." Robert had the grace to look slightly embarrassed. "I have resources and connections. It wasn't hard to find out which hospital employs a nurse who matches your description, especially after the incident was on the news." He hesitated. "I hope you don't mind. I just wanted to thank you properly." Tanya shifted uncomfortably. Her 15-minute break was ticking away and she still needed to eat lunch. "It really wasn't anything special, Mr. Thornton. I'm just glad Lily is okay." "It was everything," Robert said, his voice surprisingly intense. "I saw it happen. I was in my office." He gestured vaguely toward the window. "I saw my daughter run into the street, saw that car coming, and there was nothing I could do." His voice caught slightly. "And then you were there and you didn't hesitate." "Not for a second." Tanya didn't know what to say. The naked emotion in this stranger's voice made her uncomfortable. "I brought you these," Robert said, reaching for a large bouquet of flowers that Tanya hadn't noticed sitting on the chair beside him. The arrangement was stunning. Orchids and lilies and roses in deep purples and whites, clearly expensive and professionally arranged. "Oh," Tanya said, taken aback. "That's really not necessary." "Please," Robert insisted. "It's a small token. I'd like to do more, actually. Perhaps we could discuss it over dinner." Tanya blinked, startled by the invitation. "Dinner?" "Yes, Lily would like to thank you herself. And He hesitated, seeming suddenly less certain than before. "I'd like the chance to express my gratitude properly." Something about his tone made Tanya wary. She'd had experiences with wealthy people before. They tended to think their money could buy anything, including people's time and attention. "That's a nice offer," she said carefully, "but I'm very busy. My schedule is pretty full." "Name the time," Robert said. "Any evening that works for you. We can work around your shifts." Tanya was about to refuse again when she was struck by the genuine look in his eyes. There was something there beyond mere gratitude, a vulnerability that didn't seem to fit with his powerful appearance. "I suppose I could do Thursday," she said finally. "I get off at 6. Robert smiled, relief evident on his face. "Excellent. I'll send a car for you." "No need," Tanya said quickly. "Just tell me where to meet you." They agreed on a restaurant, not too fancy at Tanya's insistence, and exchanged phone numbers. As Robert left, Tanya found herself holding the enormous bouquet, wondering what she'd gotten herself into. "Well, well," said Jade, appearing from around the corner with a knowing grin. "Who was that?" "The father of the little girl I helped the other day," Tanya explained, trying to find somewhere to put the flowers. "They were too big to fit in her locker." "Helped? You mean saved?" Jade corrected. "And Daddy's loaded, huh?" "Apparently. And now you have a date with him." "It's not a date," Tanya protested. "He just wants to say thank you. With flowers that probably cost half your paycheck." Jade raised an eyebrow. "Sure, just saying thanks." Tanya rolled her eyes. "Don't start. It's not like that." But as she returned to her duties, she couldn't help wondering what Thursday night would bring. When Thursday arrived, Tanya spent more time than usual getting ready after her shift. She'd brought a change of clothes to work, black pants and a deep purple blouse she usually saved for special occasions. She even applied a touch of makeup, ignoring Jade's teasing comments about her hot date. The restaurant Robert had chosen was nice without being intimidating, a local place known for good food rather than exclusivity. Still, Tanya felt nervous as she approached the entrance. This wasn't her world. Robert was already there, seated at a corner table with Lily beside him. The little girl spotted Tanya first and waved excitedly. "It's the saving lady," she called out loud enough for nearby diners to turn and look. Tanya smiled, her nervousness easing at the child's enthusiasm. Robert stood as she approached, pulling out a chair for her. "Thank you for coming," he said. "Lily has been talking about meeting you all week." "I wanted to say thank you," Lily explained earnestly. "Daddy said I should make you a card." She pulled a folded piece of construction paper from her small purse and handed it to Tanya. The card was covered in glitter and stickers. Inside, in a child's careful printing, it read, "Thank you for saving me from the car. You are my hero. Love, Lily." Below, she had drawn a picture of herself in a yellow dress and Tanya in blue scrubs holding hands. "This is beautiful," Tanya said, genuinely touched. "Thank you, Lily." "I picked all the stickers myself," Lily said proudly. The server came to take their orders and the meal progressed pleasantly enough. Lily chattered about her school, her friends, and how she had told everyone about her adventure. Robert was polite but somewhat reserved, watching Tanya with an intensity that made her slightly uncomfortable. After they ordered dessert, Robert asked Lily to go look at the fish tank near the front of the restaurant. "Just for a few minutes," he told her. "I need to talk to Ms. Johnson about grown-up things." Once Lily was happily watching the tropical fish, Robert turned to Tanya. "I want to help you," he said without preamble. Tanya frowned. "Help me with what?" "Financially." He held up a hand as she started to protest. "Please hear me out. You saved my daughter's life. I can never repay that debt, but I'd like to try. Tell me what you need. School loans? Mortgage? A new car? Whatever it is, I can take care of it." Tanya sat back, suddenly understanding. This was why he had tracked her down, invited her to dinner. He wanted to pay her off, ease his conscience with money. "I don't want your money, Mr. Thornton." "Robert, please." "Robert," she corrected. "I didn't help Lily because I wanted a reward. I did it because it was the right thing to do." He looked genuinely puzzled. "I understand that. But surely there must be something you need, something I could help with." Tanya studied him for a moment. He wasn't being condescending, she realized. He simply couldn't imagine someone not wanting his money. "Tell me something," she said. "If our positions were reversed, if I were wealthy and you were struggling to make ends meet, would you accept my help?" Robert considered this, then admitted, "Probably not. I've always prided myself on being self-made." "Then you understand," Tanya said. "My pride works the same way as yours." He nodded slowly. "I think I do understand. But I still feel like I owe you something." "You don't," Tanya assured him. "But if you really want to thank me, there is something you could do." "Name it," Robert said immediately. "The clinic where I volunteer on weekends is about to lose its funding. It serves people in my neighborhood who can't afford regular health care, kids without insurance, elderly folks on fixed incomes." She hadn't planned to bring this up, but now that she had his attention, it seemed like an opportunity. They need about $50,000 to stay open another year. Robert looked almost relieved. "Consider it done. I'll have my foundation send a check tomorrow." "Just like that?" Tanya asked, surprised by how easily he agreed. "Just like that," he confirmed. "Is there anything else?" Tanya hesitated, then shook her head. "No, that would be more than enough." Lily returned then, and the conversation shifted to lighter topics. As the evening came to an end, Robert insisted on having his driver take Tanya home, and this time she accepted. As they said goodbye outside the restaurant, Lily gave Tanya a fierce hug. "Will I see you again?" she asked. Tanya glanced at Robert, unsure how to answer. "I hope so," Robert said, meeting Tanya's eyes. "Perhaps Ms. Johnson would be willing to show us around her clinic someday." "I'd like that," Tanya said, surprised to find she meant it. In the back of the luxury car that Robert had arranged for her, Tanya thought about the evening. Robert Thornton was not what she had expected. Yes, he was privileged and clearly used to getting his way. But there was something else there too, a desire to connect, to understand a world outside his own. As the car pulled up to her apartment building, Tanya realized she was still holding Lily's card. She smiled, looking again at the child's drawing of the two of them holding hands. Perhaps this strange connection wasn't over just yet. 3 months later, Tanya stood at the entrance of the newly renovated Eastside Community Health Center, still not quite believing what she was seeing. The building, once a run-down former grocery store with leaking ceilings and flickering lights, had been transformed. Fresh paint brightened the walls, new equipment filled the examination rooms, and a cheerful waiting area welcomed patients with comfortable seating and children's books. And on the wall beside the main entrance hung a simple plaque, dedicated to those who act without hesitation when others are in need. It had been Robert's idea, though he had wanted to put Tanya's name on it. She had refused, insisting that the clinic wasn't about her. It was about the community. "Are you ready?" Jade asked, appearing beside her in a dress instead of her usual scrubs. "Everyone's waiting for your speech." Tanya smoothed down the front of her own dress, a new purchase she'd initially resisted when Robert suggested she needed something special for the opening ceremony. "I still don't know why I have to give a speech," she grumbled. "This whole thing was your idea." "Because," Jade said with a grin, "you're the new clinical director and it was your connection that got us here. Besides, the press wants to see the woman behind the miracle." That was the part Tanya liked least. Somehow, despite her efforts to keep a low profile, the story had gotten out, how a nurse had saved a wealthy developer's daughter and, instead of accepting a reward, had asked him to save a struggling community clinic. The local papers had picked it up, calling it a miracle on Maple Street and using it as an example of community partnership across economic divides. "There she is," called a small voice, and Tanya turned to see Lily racing toward her, wearing a pretty blue dress with her hair in neat braids. Robert followed at a more dignified pace, looking somewhat out of place in his expensive suit amid the diverse crowd of neighborhood residents who had gathered for the clinic's opening. Lily threw her arms around Tanya's waist. "Do you like my dress?" "I picked it myself." "It's beautiful," Tanya said, smiling down at the child who had somehow become a regular part of her life over the past few months. "And your braids are perfect. Daddy did them," Lily said proudly. "He's learning how to do hair. My teacher couldn't even tell it wasn't my mom who did them." Robert looked slightly embarrassed as he joined them. "I watched some videos online," he explained. "Still working on my technique." There was something endearing about the image of this powerful businessman hunched over his daughter's head, carefully following YouTube tutorials on hair braiding. It was just one of many ways Robert had surprised Tanya since their first dinner together. "The place looks amazing," he said, looking around at the clinic. "Better than I imagined. Thanks to you," Tanya acknowledged. It was still difficult for her to accept his generosity, but she was learning that for him, writing a check was easy. The harder part had been getting him involved beyond the money, yet he had surprised her there too. What had started as a simple donation had evolved into something more. Robert had not only funded the renovations, but had also leveraged his connections to secure additional grants, donated equipment, and even free legal services to help patients navigate health insurance applications. "The contractor said the dental suite will be ready next month," Robert told her, the pride evident in his voice. "And I've got 3 dentists from uptown who've agreed to volunteer one Saturday a month." Tanya nodded, still adjusting to this new reality. Shh. He had gone from being a regular floor nurse who volunteered weekends at a struggling clinic to being the clinical director of a state-of-the-art community health center. The position came with better pay, more responsibility, and the chance to truly make a difference in her neighborhood. "It's time," Jade reminded her, pointing to the small podium set up near the clinic's entrance where a crowd had gathered. Community members, hospital colleagues, local officials, and even a few reporters waited expectantly. "You'll be great," Robert assured her, reading her nervousness. "Just speak from the heart." Tanya took a deep breath and walked to the podium. The faces looking back at her were diverse. Elderly residents she had treated for years, young mothers with children in their arms, hospital colleagues who had come to support her, and neighbors curious about the clinic that had risen so unexpectedly in their community. "Thank you all for coming today," she began, her voice steadier than she felt. "A few months ago, this clinic was about to close its doors. We were out of funding, out of supplies, and nearly out of hope." She paused, looking at the gleaming new facility around them. "Now we stand in a place that will serve this community for years to come. A place where people can receive the care they deserve, regardless of their ability to pay." From the crowd, Tanya could see Robert watching her, Lily's hand held firmly in his. The little girl waved excitedly, and Tanya couldn't help smiling. "People keep calling what happened a miracle," she continued. "They talk about how I saved a child and how her father saved our clinic in return. But that's not really the whole story." She looked out at the familiar faces of her community. "The real miracle is what happens when we see each other, really see each other, across all the lines that usually divide us, when we recognize our shared humanity and act on it. As she spoke, Tanya thought about the unlikely friendship that had developed between her and Robert over the past few months. How they had started from such different places. She, struggling to make ends meet while serving her community. He, wealthy and powerful but disconnected from the world outside his corporate towers. This clinic isn't just about healthcare, she said. It's about connection. It's about what happens when we stop seeing people as categories, rich or poor, black or white, worthy or unworthy of our care, and start seeing them as individuals with stories, struggles, and strengths. She glanced at Robert again, remembering their many conversations, how he had gradually shared the story of his failed marriage, his struggle to connect with his daughter, his growing awareness of the privilege that had isolated him from the realities many faced, and how she had opened up about her mother's death, her financial struggles, and her dreams for her community. None of this would have happened if a little girl hadn't chased her ball into the street 3 months ago, Tanya acknowledged, watching as Lily beamed at being mentioned. But it also wouldn't have happened if her father hadn't been willing to look beyond a simple thank you gift and really see the needs around him. And it wouldn't have happened if this community hadn't been ready to welcome new possibilities, new partnerships, and yes, new friends. The rest of the ceremony passed in a blur of ribbon cutting, applause, and congratulations. Afterward, as community members toured the new facility, sampling refreshments and filling out intake forms to become patients, Tanya found herself standing with Robert in a quiet corner. "That was quite a speech," he said. "You're a natural," Tanya laughed. "Hardly. My knees were shaking the whole time, no one could tell." He hesitated, then added, "I meant to thank you." "For what?" "You're the one who saved the clinic." "For helping me see," he said simply. "Before meeting you, I looked at this neighborhood and saw property values and development potential. Now I see a community, people, lives interconnected in ways I never appreciated." Tanya was touched by his honesty. "And I need to thank you too." "For the clinic?" "That was the least I could do." "Not just for that," she said. "For reminding me that change is possible, that bridges can be built." They were interrupted by Lily, who came running up with a cookie in each hand. "Miss Tanya, Daddy said we're going to the park after this. Will you come with us, please?" Before Tanya could answer, an elderly woman approached them. Mrs. Patterson had been one of the clinic's first patients years ago and had become something of a neighborhood matriarch. "So this is him?" she asked Tanya, looking Robert up and down appraisingly. "The rich man whose daughter you saved?" "Mrs. Patterson," Tanya began, slightly embarrassed. "This is Robert Thornton. Robert, this is Mrs. Patterson, a longtime patient and friend." "Nice place you've helped build here," Mrs. Patterson said. "Not one for social niceties. About time someone from uptown noticed what was happening down here." Rather than taking offense, Robert smiled. "I'm learning," he said. "Slowly perhaps, but I'm learning." Mrs. Patterson nodded approvingly. "Well, keep this one around," she told Tanya, jerking a thumb toward Robert. "He might be useful." After she walked away, Robert laughed. "I think I just got the neighborhood stamp of approval. Believe me." From Mrs. Patterson, "That's high praise," Tanya assured him. As the evening wound down, Tanya found herself standing outside the clinic, watching as the last visitors departed. Robert and Lily waited nearby, patient despite the little girl's excited chatter about the park. Tanya looked at the clinic's illuminated sign, then at the father and daughter who had unexpectedly become part of her life. 3 months ago, she had been a nurse walking home from a double shift, exhausted and alone. Now she stood as the director of a thriving community clinic with new purpose and unexpected connections, all because she had acted without thinking when a child ran into the street. "Ready to go?" Robert asked, approaching with Lily bouncing beside him. "Almost," Tanya said, taking one last look at the clinic. "I just need a moment to take it all in." As the three of them walked toward Robert's car, Lily reached up to take Tanya's hand. "I'm glad you saved me," she said matter-of-factly. "Otherwise, we wouldn't be friends." "I'm glad too," Tanya said, squeezing the small hand in hers, and she was. Not because of the clinic or the new job or any material change in her circumstances, but because in saving Lily she had somehow opened a door she hadn't known existed. A door to connection, to growth, to possibility. Some would call it fate or divine intervention. Tanya simply thought of it as a reminder that in our most instinctive actions, we often find our truest selves. And sometimes those actions change not just one moment, but all the moments that follow.